Okay. Welcome to Galactic Musician. I'm here this afternoon with my co-founder, John Owen. Say hey, John.
Hello, everybody. Glad you're here.
Yeah, and we're very fortunate today to be blessed to have with us in our studio a producer, a songwriter, a musician, an engineer, and I can go on, but you're going to find out anyways. This is Fred Chester. Say hey, Fred.
Hey, Fred.
Thanks,
Keith. I appreciate it.
So, I guess first question, are you from Tallahassee?
Well, I live here.
Yeah, but where were you born?
I was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
A lot of musicians came from that place.
Yep. Came over here to Florida State University, like a lot of people, and never left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always said we get stuck in orbit. We never achieve escape velocity. Well, tell me about your musical background, family.
Well, my mom always sang in church in a trio, and so that kind of always had me inspired to want to, sing. My dad was a machinist for the city of Jacksonville until he retired. And so he retired from the city, and then he started working for the Seaboard Coastline Railroad in the roundhouse, and he was also doing machinist work then. My brothers and I had a little band that we put together back when I was probably, I don't know, maybe 16. We played on our front porch.
Oh.
I had like a Kent 12-string, I think.
Oh,
It could hardly bend the strings. Oh, man, it's like, hurt. But, so we had a little band. And actually, when we practiced, our preacher's son, we played at their house. And they lived across the street and 2 houses down from where ultimately the Leonard Skinner Boys played. They were called the 1% back then, but they played in Bobby Burns, drummer's mother's garage.
Okay.
So we would hear them all the time, and we always thought, wow, those guys they're so great, And we'd go to the teen clubs in Jacksonville and watch them, and it was very inspiring. But we never had any idea that they would actually turn out to be as well known and famous as they ended up being.
Luck of the draw, I guess.
There you go.
I don't know. I've always said though that a lot of people are great musicians and everything, but those people put it out there. They spent 10 years on the road. All these bands that are famous, 10,000 hours, right?
Right, at least.
So, anybody in your house play music?
My youngest brother plays guitar and sometimes bass. I remember my brother had a Vox keyboard. But all that stuff kind of just disappeared, over the years. My youngest brother stayed in a band after I came to Florida State. He still had a band for a couple of years, and he's the one that really inspired me to, want to play lead guitar. He had like a Fender Bassman, or a bandmaster, I guess, that he played guitar through with a couple of 12-inch speakers, and he had a Jazz Master guitar and a Moss Wright fuzz tone.
Oh, wow.
So they were doing all that early Clapton stuff, and so he sort of got that sound with that rig, and it was real inspiring to me because I thought that sounded really cool.
Wow, there's a lot of cats that would overload Bassmans and Showman amps and get his monster sound out of them. I remember those days.
They were loud. No, those were great tube amps, really. I've got a Tremolux and a couple of Princeton, old Princeton Fender amps that are tube amps that sound real good too.
Yeah.
But not necessarily into super loud music anymore.
I hear you.
I like to be able to get the tone and the sound of it, but the lower the volume, the better for me.
We had played with a guitar player just last week, and he's got a hot Fender amp. And the tubes were hot, and I said, "Your amp's really hot, and it sounds good, but your volume is so controlled." I said, "How do you do that?" Because everybody else, we all wear earplugs around them, And he said, "There's an attenuator on the back between the amp and the speaker, and so I have the amp on loud and hot, and I just turn the attenuator down, so the speaker's only getting like 30% of what the amp's putting out."
So it's all amp distortion, not speaker distortion.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
It really sounds good when you do that too.
Yeah.
It does. Although the old guys, well, like Dwayne Allman and people like that, they like to have a small enough amp that they can turn it wide open.
Yeah.
And they've got some speaker distortion in there too, which it creates part of the sound that they end up with. But I like it coming off the amp mostly myself also.
So much of it is just the hands. You know, it's like they talked to Joe Walsh, and Joe Walsh says, "Yeah, Funk 49. I did that with a Telecaster and like a 5-watt champ or something like that." I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I digress. I'm getting them.
It's all right.
So you got the 12-string, and you had a band going at the church. And did you do any sock hops or anything like that? What we used to call
We
them.
played a couple of the teen centers around Jacksonville, but I think the name of our band was the Eternal Smile. But we didn't play a whole lot. We were just kind of getting going, and we were beginners, But we did play a few parties and a few of the teen clubs. But then I left and went to Florida State.
Uh-huh.
I ended up, working at Norton Music, and I met Bert Norton and got inspired to want to play music. So I let my hair grow out, and stuff, and started playing, and was playing in a band, and worked in the music store and helped put together the studio that was, really probably one of Tallahassee's first recording studios.
Now you said Norton Music. I'm not familiar with that. That's something that's come and gone now? Or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're talking back early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
It was over on Jackson Bluff Road. The building is still there. I can look in the front window and still see the wall that we built for the studio that's there.
Oh.
We built Sweet Bay Studios. It was Bert's dream to build that studio so that his little brother would have a place to produce and write music.
Yeah, I'm going to cut over here real quick. Does this a picture of the...
That's the logo. That used to be on the front wall of the building. And it was a 16-track, 2-inch state-of-the-art studio. We built it. The building had 4 long sections, and the music store was in one section. So we built the studio on the end section, and then on the second section he had just a storeroom for all his guitars and stuff, because he was the dealer, the Gibson and Fender franchise at the time in Tallahassee. And then I forget what he had on the section at the end, but in the end, after he built the studio, he closed the music store and the section that was the warehouse where he had his guitars, and took the wall out, opened that up, and had a nightclub there. He sold beer and wine, and then on the end section he put a sandwich shop in there. So he was able to, he's way ahead of his time.
Yeah,
fantastic guy, and he was just a very generous, wonderful person. Really, he opened the door to me to come in there and use the recording gear at night when nobody was there, and record demos of my songs and stuff. He loved our bands and all of us who did that. And so it just turned out one day I was the only person left in there other than him that could run the gear and record, so I started recording people.
Oh, so this is when you become the engineer.
That's where I became an engineer.
Okay.
I'm pretty much a hands-on guy. I play guitar. I can't read music, don't know anything about it really. I just know if it feels good and if I'm in key.
Well, through osmosis, by playing the band, you automatically learn progressions. You don't know what they are to begin with. And then we all learn this magical number system, 1 through 7, and we say that's a 1, 4, 5, and C.
Yeah. So I focused more on, on the feel and, the lyric and melody. All our songs are pretty personal, and so, I recorded a lot of stuff there, and I learned how to use the gear. And like I said, when I told you earlier that I did a lot of 2-inch tape cutting.
Yeah, that just floors me. I mean, the fact that you can take a big piece of tape and run a knife right down it and move it over just enough to not lose the note, or to lose the note and nothing else.
It was a little scary sometimes doing that, but because there's no undo button like there is now,
and there's no copy.
That's right.
That's the master.
That's right.
Wow.
So you can stick it back together, but it depends. That little piece might be laying on the floor. Who knows? And if it's too small, then you got a real problem. A real problem. But and I cut the master tapes. They were mixed down to 1/4-inch tape. That was pretty simple to edit at that point. But
yeah.
But I did a lot of that, so I learned really how to do it pretty well. But now anybody can do it with a computer, so
Yeah,
it's a lost art.
I know. Joe Walsh talks about this all the time. Is this album he put out, Analog Man, and talks about what happened when the mistakes when people were playing live, that became historical, and they made them warm. He says now everything's perfect,
Yeah.
So during this time, you're still playing guitar. You're working with bands while you're doing the recording, engineering.
Myself and probably 4 other people, built that studio. It was a Pecky Cypress control room. It was a beautiful studio, and it was made from cypress planks that Bert bought from, I think, over in Perry somewhere. And we planed them all down and made every board.
Wow.
And they were different thicknesses and widths, and the wall was sort of corrugated, looking the way we designed it. And
really,
it was a beautiful, it was a work of art. I mean, it was a beauty to see it, but it sounded really good too. And so I got to record a lot of people, a lot of local musicians, that came in there. And played, on a lot of the record. I did a lot of session work back then.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much now, but yeah. You mentioned Joe Walsh. It's funny because he's like one of my mentors. I had a Leslie that I played guitar through because that's what he used to do.
Yeah, right.
So I really liked that sound a lot. So I had this Leslie that we used to lug around.
My God!
In some of the
wood
bands.
cabinets with the
Yeah.
tweeter rooms.
Yeah.
Oh man!
I actually had it up until about 3 years ago, and then I sold it to some guy down South Florida. But that was a great sound, and I had all those toys mostly because of him. I had the talk box and and the Leslie and a bunch of different guitars, Telecaster or Les Paul.
Right. And then Knopfler was a totally different sound altogether because
Yep.
he had more of a Celtic.
Mm-hmm.
He would never finish a note on a high note. He wouldn't bend. He'd always go to a lower note and have that low tone when he finished a lead.
Uh-huh.
And that was just totally wow. It sounded very Celtic to me, and maybe that's what it was. That was just his ear hearing that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Very, very melodic, and that's what I liked about all those guys. Where they were melodic, they played melody. They weren't, they weren't necessarily into trying to be speed freaks or play, super fast all the time. They were into melody and feel, and really it's all about the feel to me, and of course the lyric, but the feel.
So you got into recording, doing the sound engineering by a process of elimination, I guess, almost.
Yeah.
You said,
Like you said, osmosis. I mean,
and then somewhere along the line, you started to get into production work.
I think the first album I co-produced, I kind of instigated it with the band, but it was the La Bamba Brothers band, and they eventually became La Bamba. But they lived up the street from where I lived over on Atkamar and Airport Drive, and which was right behind the studio. As a matter of fact, from our backyard, you could throw a baseball and hit the studio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was convenient. So anyway, I liked their music a lot. They were a very popular band for about 8 years, I think, in Tallahassee, and so I co-produced their album with them, and I had learned enough from recording to be able to do the recording, but also to being a guitar player and musician, I could put in ideas and just offer some different stuff to them to see, but mostly I let them do their own thing.
Yeah,
I just kind of try to guide them a little bit if it would go out in left field, but they were very tight together band, so in that particular situation I didn't have to do a whole lot. Yeah, those guys are so talented, and they had a great sax player, Sammy Tedder. So and a couple of guitar players that were really good. The only thing with that band, I think, that I did that was a little out of their frame of thought was I had this little Gretsch amplifier with a 110-inch speaker in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called a Gretsch Playboy, I think is what it was called back then. A little tube amp, and so they had this really great song, and it needed a gutsy, They were more jazzy, and I wanted, I thought, wow, it would sound really good if you had a gutsy guitar lead in here.
Oh yeah.
So I talked Mike Andrews into playing through that little amp, and I think we had the amp back in the vocal booth, sitting on top of the Leslie cabinet, and we turned it wide open, and he was playing through it. And I think the amp was out in the room. I mean, the microphone was out in the room.
He still picked it up.
Yeah.
from
Oh
inside.
yeah. Oh yeah. But it was a really blown out, ballsy sound, and it made it on the album. I think everybody ended up really liking it a lot. It fit
Yeah.
the song really well, but with that band, I didn't give that much input because they had so many songs and they were so tight.
Yeah.
Mike Ricklick, who's a keyboard player and main vocalist for that band, has written a ton of really great songs, and that's what they put on the entire thing.
Excellent.
But Mike wrote the majority of them.
Oh.
So La Bamba was Stan Gramling, Ralph Stewart, Sammy Tedder, Mike Andrews, Warren Sutton, Mike Ricklick, and Eddie Horan.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
probably a good thing that you have somebody who is actually a player that does the engineering part, because sometimes engineers, they're all into the technology part,
Right.
but they don't understand the aesthetic part about what's going on. So you're like a double person, being able to do both things, give advice on aesthetics as well as engineer everything properly for them.
Yeah, I was blessed in that I had worked on both sides of the glass, and I don't know, it's just something that sort of developed over time. I was there and I had the opportunity to do it, and so I did it, and I just learned from all of that and tried to grow, and that helped my own music that I was writing at the time and recording. So I was in a different band at that time. I was in a band called Wide Open Spaces, which morphed into with the La Bamba band when they broke up into what became Flipside, which was a very popular songwriter band in this area back then for I don't know, probably 6 years or so.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What's the you write music as well? What's the
I
feeling
do.
for the you write songs.
I do.
What's the feeling for the kind of music you like to write?
I don't know. I mean, I really have a lot of different styles, I think. It's just stuff that kind of came out. Originally, I was in a duo with Jim Evans, and we were Chester and Evans, and we played acoustic music songs that we wrote. I don't know, they were sort of folk songs, but I don't know, I still think they're probably maybe more in the style of Jackson Browne or something like that. So then we became Wide Open Spaces, and Ed Bradley, the drummer, was also a songwriter, and he had played guitar, and so he had his style. Jim had his style, I had my style, but mine developed I guess through recording in the studio. Then I started doing writing stuff on electric guitar, and learning how to play lead more. And so I don't know. It's rock. My style is rock, but I play some blues. I play a little bit of jazzy stuff, but I'm not really a jazz player at all. I'm more of a country rock or rock and roll guitar player.
Are
I
we
think.
going to have some of his recordings available on the
Oh yes,
website?
We'll
Great.
definitely have. He's offered different songs from going back into the 1970s, and also be able to put up some videos, especially the 2005 Tommy's reunion. There's some really good stuff that you did on that. I think you played with La Bamba on that day too.
Yeah, I think that was a combination of Flipside and La Bamba.
Yeah.
It had La Bamba had already retired at that point, I believe, and Flipside had sort of was on the verge of diminishing, I think, because some of them were moving away and stuff. But it was actually, we had come back together to do that. It was kind of a reunion gig.
Yeah.
And so
a lot of bands, even One Color Band.
That's right. Wacola Band was in it. Velma Fry played. Had her ladies choir group sing in it. Mackenzie Brothers were in it, and BB Jam was in it, which was another band that was produced at Sweet Bay Studios.
Yeah, all good bands for sure.
They're all good bands, and the great thing about all of that group of people was they played mostly by feel. The songs really came out of them. There were songs they felt, and that's why they wrote them. And then they just a lot of times you never play the same thing twice. It wasn't like it was scored or anything. It was all so much spontaneity.
Yeah.
I know, like on the Train song, when we did that song, Jim Evans was living in Gainesville. He came over. We didn't even have a rehearsal or anything. He knew the song, sort of.
Yeah.
He'd heard it. He might have even played on it one time or something. But he played a great slide guitar part on that video. So it was all very much spontaneous. All the solos, were different every night because we just played it as we felt it. And
Right.
sometimes we changed the arrangement in the middle of the song or something. That's just kind of the way we
A lot
were.
of improv going on.
Yeah, a lot of improv, but it just seemed to work. I don't know. It was just kind of magic, really. It was a blessing, I think.
Well, I tell you, Fred, we've got some photographs that you were kind enough to bring along with you.
Oh, boy.
And so we want to kind of take a look at these. And it's a pictorial history of your life, your musical life, and in your life in general. Because how do you separate them? Your musical life from who you are.
Right.
Because
Can't.
we're one and the same, aren't we?
We are.
So who are these young people?
Oh, that's my mom and my dad.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I love those pants. Look at that, you got white shoes on.
Shoes.
I think.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite pictures of my parents.
This is this is Jacksonville, you said.
It was in
Okay.
Jacksonville. Yep, on the west side. I grew up on the west side. Went to John Gorey Junior High School and Lee High School. I'm sure that photo was from the 50s.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and these, again?
Oh, there they are again.
Okay. Boy, they must have been young sweethearts.
They were sweethearts, yeah. My dad died at age 90, and my mom's going to be 98 in September.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were, they've been married, I don't know, 65, 70 years, really.
That's a long
So,
relationship.
yeah, they had that magical relationship. You don't see a lot of that anymore, but
No.
Yeah.
So I'm tired of you. See ya. Those people work through things,
right. Yeah.
So I got to ask you a question about this next photograph.
Okay. Oh, come on. That's my buddy, oldie but a goodie. Actually, that's me in my younger days. That's a Halloween mask that I had that I really liked.
Oh, okay.
You could put the mask on it, and then I put my glasses on over the mask, and I put this hat on, and so I had this old suit. I always tried to get the Harvest Gypsies to maybe like wear some old clothes, like out of the 20s or something, and
Yeah,
kind of look. But to dress, like something like that, I thought it'd be cool, But I could never talk them into doing it, We were t-shirt, blue jean guys.
You'd have to get the, what's his name, Brian Seltzer kind of guys, to pull that one off.
Well, that was just me in my home studio. I just thought,
Okay.
I think I'll do that. It was Halloween. I had the mask on and everything, so I thought, well, I'll just take some photos, for the heck of it.
Okay.
Fun to be wild and crazy, so I did. That's a photo of the baseball team that I was the team manager for.
Wow, that's quite an honor. I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
It was, and it was just fate again. I did it in my senior year of high school, and my coach went to college with Fred Hatfield, who is the baseball coach at Florida State. He's standing on the back row and on the left corner, and that's me standing beside him. And it just so happens that on the other side of me is Mike Martin.
Oh, is that right?
That's Mike.
So he's top row, third from the left.
That's correct.
And, of course, you're
I had him
you're the
sign
guy
it.
right between the two
Yeah,
of them.
between them, it's like great bookends, what can I say?
Now, I'm looking at this clean-cut guy here who's the manager of the baseball team. And then this next shot, I'm thinking, well, is this the same guy?
That is the same guy. That's why I left. Yeah. That was when my hair was, about halfway grown out.
About halfway. Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, I think I let it grow down till it got hung up in my belt.
Now I remember you.
Is that
Back
right?
in the day, yeah.
Yeah, that was me, 130 pounds, dripping wet.
This is post-baseball management.
Post, yes. This is all, probably everything you're going to show from here on out is going to be post-baseball. Yeah. But I'm still a big baseball fan. I go to all the games, home games, and
It's a nice telly. You don't have that, do you still?
Yeah, I do. It's a Esquire actually, which is a single pickup Fender guitar. But when I bought it from Bert from the music store. Somebody traded it in. It was a '63.
Yeah, it's got
Esquire.
a humbucker, doesn't it?
Yeah, and so somebody had put a humbucker in the front. They had the original Telly pickup, Esquire pickup in the back, and I ended up ultimately taking the electronic side of that and putting G&L Telly pickups in it. So it's set up like a Telecaster now, but I still have the original guts if I ever wanted to put it back, if I was going to try to sell it or something. But it's such an awesome guitar. I don't think I'll be selling it.
No.
Maybe my daughter will sell it when I'm gone or something.
It's one of those things.
I like to think.
I've marked to who gets what guitars.
That's right. Yeah. This
Man, look at those speakers. Holy cow. Those bottoms are obviously bass bends, I'm going to say.
Yeah, it's a Zorch Audio. A good friend of mine that was one of my housemates, we all kind of lived together, Kent Phillips, and he wanted to be in the sound company business because he didn't play an instrument, but he would book our bands and stuff, and he wanted to build this big concert PA. So over there on Acamar Drive, right in our backyard, we'd stack those babies up. They looked just like that. They were like bigger than a portalet.
Yeah, I remember playing through those things. It was amazing.
Laying on their side. Yeah, he had Crown amps that he drove it with, and it was one of the early, sound companies. He
probably 6 Crowns to power those things.
He might have. I don't know if he had that before Ken Beatty had his system or not, or Real Rock. It was before Real Rock came into creation and ultimately became PSG.
So did you get out of the studio and do some live sound like this?
Yes, we did. We used that PA down in South Florida somewhere and did sound for Alice Cooper.
Oh,
and then we did in Atlanta Stadium we did James Brown concert.
Whoa.
And then a couple other James Brown concerts somewhere else up north of Atlanta.
Okay.
So we'd load it all in the back of a big Ryder truck and we'd pile ourselves in there with it. And we'd go to wherever the gig was,
Okay, so you do sound capture and you do live sound, sound
right.
reinforcement.
I didn't do so much.
Yeah,
I didn't do any of the mixing back then. But I was just a gopher guy. I'd help set it up, take it down, wire it up, or whatever they told me to do. But I wasn't mixing yet at that point.
Okay. Well,
but I played through it a bunch.
Who are these guys?
That's Chester and Evans. That's Jim Evans on guitar, and me playing that old dobro there. We were a duet, Chester and Evans, and we did a bunch of recordings at Sweet Bass Studios. Those are the first things that I recorded of my music and of his music. And we did that for a couple of years, I think. Let's see. That was our promo picture. You see Rascal Yard Management. That was my friend Kent Phillips, who had the sound company. That was his management company. That photo was taken in Sweet Bass Studios. I remember. I think that was Bert's 12 string that Jim's playing, and he's got the Sweet Bay T-shirt on. So yeah, that was probably 1976, maybe. I'm just guessing, but somewhere in that general.
I placed that guitar because the headstock.
Yeah, that was a beautiful guitar. Sounded great too. And so Jim and I teamed up with Ed Bradley and Pat Brown, who was his brother-in-law, I guess. Mm-hmm. Pat played bass and Ed played drums and wrote on acoustic guitar. And Jim and I, we had the four-piece band called Wide Open Spaces. And we were, sometimes I think that was probably the best band I was ever in, because everything was from the heart, and we were writing all of our own music, and it was the early stages of us being writers and players, and we just had this knack of singing 3-part harmony together that just sounded so warm and good, and I don't know if we ever had a vocal rehearsal. We just naturally somebody play a song and we'd decide, okay, and we'd play what we thought sounded good with it. Next thing you know, we're trying to sing on the chorus or something.
You're blessed when you got 3 voices that all work well together. They almost layer.
And we could, we'd switch off on whoever's song it was. They'd sing the lead on it, and then the other two'd sing a harmony part to it.
Well, that's a gift. I'm here to tell you, no matter what, singing harmony. is a gift.
It is, and it
Natural ear for it.
We did it a lot, and it's mighty fun, I'll have to say, to do. And so anyway, that band, we played Ruby Diamond. I have a really good recording of us playing live at Ruby Diamond. It's really good. One of the better ones, at least. But anyway, La Bamba was together at the time. We were recording in the studio, and then I got to know the La Bamba guys and wanted to record their music for them. And so we did. And then toward the end of all of that, they were going different ways. Part of the band became River Breeze, and the other part became Flipside. So Jim and I and Ed, the drummer, joined that part of the La Bamba that went and became Flipside.
Okay.
They were the original members from that group, and I was a sound man at that point. I also was working on an album for them at Sweet Bay, because Mike Ricklick was such a talented songwriter, and he had all these great songs, and that band was just a really good band. It was sort of a pop rock band, but they played all different styles. They had great blues songs and great jazzy songs and a couple of folky ones. I mean, every style really, because there were 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 songwriters in that band.
Wow.
Every player in Flipside, except for Art, the bass player, was a singer-songwriter. Had a great singer out front, Ralph Stewart, and he was a fantastic vocalist, sounded like Smokey Robinson, and played incredible percussion, played congas and just all kind of percussion, but was a real showman and a great singer. And he and Mike were the main lead singers in that band. And like I say, I was a sound guy, and I loved that band. We opened up a lot, for like 3 or 4 times, for Spiral Gyra, and we were the opening act for Little Feat, Firefall, Night Ranger, and the Producers. I can't remember everybody that we opened up for, but we opened up for a lot of named groups, really. One of the last ones being Chuck Mangione at one of the last Havana Music Fest, and I was playing with the band at that point. But they had a couple of guitar players. Jim was a guitar player, and then Clint was another guitar player, and Jim left, and then Clint was the only guitar player, and then finally Clint was leaving. He graduated from school, and he was going to move down south, and so they needed a guitar player. And lucky for me, I mean, I love their music so much, I knew all the songs in my head. I just I went back through a bunch of cassette tapes that we recorded at all the gigs and stuff, and tried to learn as many of Clint's guitar parts as I could, so that I could kind of duplicate what they already had as a sound. And I think Mississippi James also auditioned for that band as a guitar player, and in my opinion, he was a better guitar player than I was by far. But he was a different style. He's a blues guy, and he didn't. He played totally different riffs and stuff, and so it would have changed everything for that band's sound. So they chose me to be the guitar player. So then we had to get somebody to do our sound. And for the last year and a half, I was the guitar player in Flipside, and we got also another a different bass player, John Waters, who was a great bass player.
That's high praise. You beat out James.
Well,
Mississippi
it's
James,
only
right?
because I cheated and I went and learned all the guitar parts.
You're a young Jimmy Page here or something.
Yeah, it was probably about that time. I wish I still had that guitar. I really regret selling that one. That was just a blonde, kind of a white blonde Telecaster with a blonde neck, and I painted it up psychedelic. There was a group called Love, if you remember them, and their album had that picture on it, and that's where those faces down behind the bridge came from. But if you look closely, the pick guard came off of the, I think His Majesty's Satanic Request or something by the Rolling Stones. They had that hologram cover on their album. And so I cut that out and glued it on my pick guard. So that's what it is. It's a hologram from that from the Rolling Stones from that album.
I love this kind of an almost forgotten band. This is down to earth side.
Yeah, that's the acoustic guitar that I still have. I think I wrote almost every song on that acoustic guitar. It's a Martin 018 small body.
Yeah.
I love that guitar. It's just so warm and friendly. I love it.
Okay, now what is this one about?
That is the Time to Listen album. That is the first album produced at Sweet Bay Studios.
Oh, okay. You're listed down there as a player.
I have 3 or 4 songs on there that I wrote, and then I played all the guitar and I sang, and then other people played the other parts. I didn't really have a band at that point, but I did the color graphics for it. I did that drawing, and another graphic artist did all of the black and white logo stuff for it.
I like the guy on the mountain there.
Yeah.
Is that a self-portrait you did?
It actually is, but I had to use something, and I had this picture.
It looks kind of like your picture on that chair close.
Yeah, it might have come from that one actually. I don't know.
Oh,
But, it started out from
about
that.
this one here.
Yeah,
This is
probably.
great.
Probably it started out from that one and developed into that.
See, he's also multi-talented because doing graphic and design like that, skill.
Yeah, this is
There's
the
the back
cover.
of it. Yes, let's see. 1, 2. I have 3 songs on there. One of them, "Come Together in Time," I still think is a really awesome song. That's one of my favorites. And then the first song I ever wrote is "One of Those Days," which is recorded by Steve Guthrie. He's the guy on the left. He was in a band I had prior to all of this stuff at Sweet Bay Studios called Daddy Two Foot. We had that was with Paul Brand, and I were both guitar players. So we had 2 lead guitar players, and we had 2 lead singers, and Steve was one of them. That's why we called ourselves Daddy Two Foot. We were a hard rock band, though. We did all cover stuff back then, but that was the first recording that Steve had ever done, and it was the first song that I ever wrote. And it's an interesting song. Velma Fry had just come back to town, and she sang background on it. And we just tried to get local musicians to come in and play on those. And then the other guy that was there, David Griggs was there next to me. Bert's brother Ken. That's why I said Bert built the studio so that Ken could write and produce his music. So there were songs there. They both had a common friend, David Griggs. It was just a great singer, and they'd written all these songs, and they were really simple little songs, but very catchy, really commercial. But they're sort of like, I listen to them now, and they sound like old country kind of songs, back in the Tom T. Hall, George Jones era, maybe, or Elvis even. David had a voice sort of like, he had kind of an Elvis kind of a song, but some really good stuff that Ken produced for that record. And then the other band was BB Jam, which on that recording they were called Bluesberry Jam. That was their first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bluesberry Jam. They had a couple of songs on there, and my good friend Jimmy Ryan was their engineer, and he lived up the street from us also, along with the keyboard player from that band. So we all lived on that Atkamar Drive road back in there, back then in the 70s.
So this is like a collage of artists.
It is.
together.
It's a compilation disc and a collage. And I think we tried to list on there everybody that played, but you can't really see it on that. There's only a few copies of that left. I probably have, I don't know, 8 copies of it maybe. It's still in the shrink wrap, unopened. But that was the first product that Sweet Bay Studios put out. And wow, what a thrill. That takes me back. But that was the beginning of my recording engineering time.
Well, I got to tell you, I like this next picture. You got to tell me the story behind it.
That's Wide Open Spaces. That was taken in the downstairs of the house we lived in on Atkamar behind the studio. Mm-hmm. Underneath the carport slab, we had a room down there that was totally enclosed. We built a triple thick door on it, and it was a concrete block room.
Soundproof.
So sort of soundproofed. And we hung carpet tiles on the wall to keep it from totally killing our ears. and that was Wide Open Spaces. There's a little Gretsch amp, see, sitting up there on top. That's a Leslie cabinet right behind me that I was telling you about that I played through.
Right.
And then there was an Echo unit, and then the little Gretsch Playboy amp that I said that Mike Andrews played through on the La Bamba song. And that's my favorite, once again, acoustic guitar. Jim Evans on guitar, and Ed Bradley was our drummer. And so the three of us sang, and then his brother-in-law played bass.
Okay, now we're moving on to Flipside.
Flipside.
This is a little more sophisticated.
Yeah, they were a pop band, like I said. The only one that's not there is Jim Evans, which is the guy that was in the other picture playing the Strat.
Are you one of these guys here?
I am not one of these.
Oh, okay.
Oh, not at the moment.
You've changed.
No, not yet.
Okay.
And then Jim left,
Okay.
and so it was just Clint on guitar, and then ultimately Clint left, and that's when I became the guitar player, and then we changed bass players at that time too.
I was going to ask you, this next picture, were you dueling for who was going to be the guitar player of the band?
Yes.
I think somebody won out.
I think somebody won out. That's correct. That's a good question. I like that. That actually was homecoming at Florida State University, I think in 1986, maybe. That's John Kerswig playing drums, although he was 5 times a guitar player. I am. And I got to play, be the rhythm guitar player, basically. And John Waters, who was the bass player that was in that last part of Flipside when I was a guitar player. And there was a keyboard player from a band called Spice, John Christie, I think was his name, played organ. But he actually gave me 2 guitar solos. I think I'm probably playing one in that one picture where I'm standing out front looking like I'm playing something. So that was Chuck, but he was a legend. It was a thrill, something I got to do, although it was strange, but fun.
Now
Always
we're moving
fun.
on.
Oh, this is Harvest Gypsies.
This is the guy. Now this is the guy I remember. When I first we
That's
talked
him.
earlier, I moved to town and I saw the local bands, and I always remembered you. You were a standout guitar player.
Wow. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. You can see our posters up there. That's our practice room. You can see the La Bamba poster there from way back, and there's a La Bamba Brothers. There's a Time to Listen poster from when that album came out. That's Bert in the picture that owned the studio, and he built the studio, and he produced all of the groups that I showed you on that first album. He never charged anybody a penny. He never told them to do anything. He just go in there and make your music, and let's see what we can do with it. And so we were so fortunate to be, the few that he did that with. I mean, he had to charge other bands money because he was trying to make a living with the studio. But Mike Ricklick, Art Ronk, me, and Ed Bradley. So this is basically Flipside light. Yeah. Mike was an English teacher at Sale, and he was quite famous locally at Sale. Everybody knew him as Mr. Wiggly, and he taught there until he retired. And so he wrote a book or two and a bazillion songs that are really catchy, awesome songs. So this was probably back around 2000 maybe that Harvest Gypsies got together. And he named it Harvest Gypsies because being an English teacher, John Steinbeck was one of his favorite writers, and Steinbeck put out these journals before he wrote Grapes of Wrath and Of Mice and Men, and they were called the Harvest Gypsies. And they were these little scenarios about, the common working guy, the poor guy, the migrant worker, whatever, and their struggles. And so a lot of his songs, kind of talk about things like that. He writes songs about Satchel Paige, and different songs about different old blues musicians, or just different type songs. And so that's why he wanted to name the band that. And so that's what we played under, and we played together, I don't know, 12, 14 years maybe. Well, actually, yeah, because I think our last gig was in 2014. Maybe at the Backwoods Bistro.
And I think that's why I saw you.
You think so?
I think that's why I saw you.
that little
I
bitty
wanted to mention
stage.
that earlier. But, Harvest Gypsies goes on the tours.
Yep, that's Harvest Gypsies. Yeah, that's Harvest Gypsies. We played a lot of the flip side songs that were very popular that people loved, that Mike and Jim Evans wrote, like Who Owns This Cat and He Don't Hurt Nobody But Himself, and songs like that. So many of them. Great dance songs, but yet really quality ballad songs. I was quite proud of that band. Love playing in it. And,
This is the guy I remember. This is the guy right here. I remember seeing, and it was at the Backwood Bistro.
Yeah.
I'm sure of that. Yeah.
I played my S1 there, which was Gibson's attempt to make a 3 single coil pickup guitar.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Yep.
It's interesting.
It is interesting. It's got a teardrop headstock on it and sort of almost a Les Paul body, and then 3 single coil pickups, and I've got my MIDI pickup in the back of it there. You can see it. I played through that for a little while just to try to get some different textures and stuff. But mostly I played it because it stayed in tune, and I liked the sound of it, and it did sound a bit like a Strat, but then also like a Gibson.
That's huge playing live, is to have something that stays in tune all the time.
I know, it's always a struggle for me. There was about a year in I guess it was in Harvest Gypsies where my guitar would not stay in tune. Finally, I got that guitar, and it stayed in tune pretty well. But then I bought a Strat and got Bobby Kennedy at Music Masters to set it up for me, and it stayed in tune really well. And I could even use the whammy bar on it, and it would stay
that's
in
unusual.
tune.
Yes,
Yeah.
I blocked my tail. I've got a black Strat, and I blocked the tailpiece so that it wouldn't go out of tune on me.
Because I love to just like throw in a little whammy note or 2-string thing occasionally, in the middle of a song or something. It's great.
Okay, here's another gentleman who's on the bass with you.
That's Art Ronk. He was a bass player in BB Jam, and then the bass player in Flipside up until I became the guitar player. And then he was bass player in Harvest Gypsies. So we did a lot of the Harvest Flipside songs in Harvest Gypsies, but then Mike was such a prolific writer, and Ed and I were writing again then too. So we were all original music. Most of the bands I've ever been in were songwriter bands, because that's what we like to do. Eli was a great cover band, and could play it like the record, and this wasn't our thing.
Yeah. Here's the rhythm section right here.
That's Ed. Yeah, that was also at the same Southwood Festival.
God, those 58s have been around forever, haven't they?
Oh man, yeah. You can hammer nails with those things. They're the workhorse. And they always sound great,
Oh, yeah.
A lot of famous people use them live still.
I got a box full of them,
Yeah.
man, And if people bring all these different mics in, I go, no. Here, put a 58 on. Or, it's something else, it's 57 if I want
It sure makes great mics, like the one you're talking into right now. It's an SM7. Man, these mics are fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I've got one. I use it a lot on a lot of different stuff.
It makes us all sound like DJs. That's why.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
What is this?
Oh, man, what a great night. I forgot I gave you that picture. That was at Creux de Gras before it closed. We did a Hippie Night, and we learned all of these old hippie songs from the 60s and 70s, and we dressed like hippies, and we played all of these great songs. We had we worked up probably, 40 songs maybe, just for this gig.
Oh my God.
And it was so much fun. We had a great time.
Who else in this picture?
Well, same guys. That's Harvest Gypsies. Flipside reunion at the Moon. That's Mike Ricklick on the keyboards, and Clint Braswell, the flip side guitar player, and Art Ronk on the bass. This was a reunion. We had not played together in I don't know, 10 years or more maybe. Clint came back to town. We had one rehearsal that night for a couple of hours, just kind of skimmed over stuff, and Jim once again was not able to come to rehearsal, but he showed up for the gig and he played, and it was just a great time. We've done a couple of reunions at the Moon, and you know, there's a little bit of talk about maybe we might do one more before we give it all up.
As Eric Clapton said, maybe we should have a reunion while we still can.
That's right.
When they asked him about Cream getting together, he says, well, we're all still walking upright. Maybe we should do it.
Yeah.
That's true.
All right, I love this picture. I love the lights on this, man.
That picture, I love that one. That's I have that one on my wall, actually, in my studio. So that photo was taken at the Moon, and it was actually a concert that we did as a benefit for Tim Donovan and his wife Kim, who was ill. So we wanted to help him out because Tim was a DJ, local DJ, and he had his own radio show that featured all original music from Tallahassee.
Oh, really?
So a lot of our music got on the air through him, and he was a big supporter of our bands, and he would, come and to the gigs and stuff. And he was several of the concerts we've done, he would come and MC the concert to get us going. But that particular one was to raise money to try to help them, and it turned out actually to be a Flipside and La Bamba reunion.
Gosh, you've got a whole cast of characters. I can tell that's you over on the left.
That's me. Yeah, it's a.
It's like you got a Sunburst Strat or something.
Yeah, that's my Japanese Strat that I play. That's the one that I got tuned up where I could play it all the time. That's the one I use. It's a Japanese Strat with GNL insides. It's all the guts are GNL.
Oh, okay.
Strap, and it's a blonde neck. But it's the only blonde neck I have.
So I love blonde necks.
I do too, and it's the only one I have, and that's why in Harvest Gypsies I played it all the time.
So you got a crew. Who's on saxophone here?
Sammy Tatter.
Sammy Tatter, okay.
Fantastic sax player. He just can walk up and play with anybody without even rehearsing. Great.
My horn player is always talking about him.
Tallahassee boy.
He's number one.
Are you talking about Bill Landing?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bill's great. Bill used to come sit in with Harvest Gypsies all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were one of the first bands he started going around and just sitting in with.
Oh, okay.
We always had an open stage. Any of our friends that came that we knew played guitar and we knew they were good musicians.
Right.
We would, and Bill was one of them. We'd just say, yeah, come up and play
he's
on the next set, No, he was so great. And it just made it better. And so we always had an open stage, and we'd let our friends come up and play. And toward the end, for maybe the last couple of years we were together,
Steve Van Gorder, the keyboard player from BB Jam, would show up, or Ed's son Jess, or his nephew Dylan Bradley Brown. Both of them were really good drummers. And
all three of Mike's sons would come up and play. One of his sons, Clayton, is a drummer. He's in a band called Of Montreal, which is a national group, and they live in New York, and they've traveled all over the world playing. But he's a great drummer. He would come sit in on drums, and Mike's son Casey, the guitar player, would come, and he's playing slide guitar, electric guitar, and doing really great. And then his oldest son
Nathan
came, and he became a singer. So we played a couple of songs that he would sing lead on, and he'd play rhythm guitar and sing, and so we just let them come up, and we'd do a set with them.
When they come up, it's like, oh, something's new here.
Yeah, and it keeps you on your toes because you know that everything's going to change on the spot.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what makes it so much fun. And, man, sometimes it feels like the roof was going to come off, that things just started clicking and sounding so good. And it's like, wow.
Yeah,
it was an energy rush.
Let's go around again.
That's right.
Who's on keyboards back here on the left?
Oh, that's Mike Andrews.
Okay.
But Mike Andrews playing the keyboard over there was one of the guitar players in La Bamba.
Oh, okay.
So this is a combination of La Bamba and Flipside.
Who you got on acoustic here? Looks like an Ovation.
No, that is a Tercer guitar. It's electric. That's Jim Evans.
Oh, okay.
He lives in Gainesville still. Anytime we do a reunion, he tries to come over. He's a great songwriter, tremendous singer. and a really good guitar player. Plays awesome slide guitar or just regular guitar. I mean, he blisters it, man. But he's so tasteful.
It's a nifty habit playing slide. I mean, you know.
Yep. He on the train song, which is I guess going to be in this video somewhere. He plays the slide guitar part, and it's pretty smoking.
Okay, who's lead?
In the red guitar there, that's Warren Sutton. He's the other guitar player in La Bamba, and Warren is a great jazz guitar player. Mm-hmm. He's a chord man. He knows a bazillion.
Yeah, he kind of goes up
jazz chords, you know, and he just plays all this really sensitive stuff, and then he can rip out. But yeah, Warren is a fantastic guitar player. Eddie Horan, he's a drummer from La Bamba. Mm-hmm. Ed Bradley, our drummer from Harvest Gypsies, and Flipside, played on some of the songs, but in this particular shot, we were playing something, and Eddie Horan was on drums. He's a La Bamba drummer who moved back to town. He's a lawyer, and he lives here now. Stan is in the
holding
blue
down
shirt.
the bottom end. Yeah.
Yeah, holding down the bottom. Stan, what a great guy. What a great
Bass player.
Oh, that's Clint Braswell. That's the Flipside guitar player.
Oh, okay.
That, you know, I said was a student, and they put out an ad, and he came in.
Oh, he's still hung around.
He lives in South Florida, but he came up for the gig.
Oh, cool.
We've done 2 or 3 reunions, and they've all come up for the gig. The Tommy's reunion that you're going to see, that one song on, Ralph came up, the singer that plays percussion, and he's in part of that, but he wasn't able to make this one. He lives in Bonaire, which is an island off the coast of
Venezuela.
It's down around Curacao. It's in the Netherland Antilles. It's called Bonaire's Paradise. He lives there. He plays at this club on the beach. He sends me pictures all the time. What a great life. And he plays congas, and he's got all these tracks that he's recorded that he plays with. So he can sound like he's got a band.
Yeah,
and
right,
he sings,
right.
and he's got 2 or 3 harmony parts that he sang, you know, that he sings along with, and he's got it all worked out. He's got a show, and that's what he's doing. He's in paradise.
What a life.
Yeah, it is. And then Mike Ricklick on the keyboards.
I went to Mike Andrews a few times for eyeglasses.
Yes.
And I always heard he was a great player, and we always talked about doing something and never did it. So.
He is a great player.
Yeah, you know, the thing is, there's so many good musicians, but everybody's involved.
Right.
And then when they bust loose, well, you're involved somewhere else, you know. And so sometimes
Hard. There's so many great musicians in this area, and so many I've not been able to play with.
Well,
I haven't gotten out a lot and played hardly any since then, and recorded some stuff, but have not gone out and played live, and have not gone out and heard a lot of people, really.
Well, I've seen
I'm
you
hoping
play.
to get motivated.
You need to
again.
share what you have with people. I've heard you play.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
There you go.
Yeah, that's me. See, there's that Japanese Strat.
Mm-hmm. Good guitar. Now, what is this one?
Same guitar.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm assuming a different paint job.
I love that.
Shop.
I really probably shouldn't have taken it off of there. On the back, it's just the guitar.
Yeah, it's a little.
So it doesn't go all the way around, and it looked a little rough on the edges. If you saw it and held it, you'd look at it and go,
Flip it over and you go.
yeah, well, it ain't so cool when you look at it that way. But like that, it looks really cool. And I played that for, I don't know, at least a year, maybe longer, on stage like that. And
It
and
certainly
I
is a
liked
conversation piece, isn't it?
it was. But that ended up being the guitar I was going to play all the time, so ultimately I ended up taking it off.
Yeah.
So I guess it got wadded up and thrown in the trash can.
Ouch. Now this is where I'm
there you go. That's one of the last gigs we played.
This would have been like I said, I moved town probably 15 years ago now, so I would have been out and about that time. You know,
So that was
checking
probably
people out.
2012, 2014, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were really the first band to play at the Bistro.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they had just opened it up, and those guys moved up from Sop Choppy and opened that restaurant. And we were playing the Mockingbird a lot, and then it was sort of...
The Mockingbird here in town.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Major club for years, one of our favorite places to play. And we got in and got to play, and she loved our band. We played there as much as any band, really. We played there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We always got to play New Year's Eve. So one New Year's Eve, we played a Beatles set. We played all our stuff, but then one set was just Beatles songs that we worked up. And we played, like I say, we're not a cover band. We always played the cover songs we played our way.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
our version of Beatles songs. But one year we did that, and then the next year we did all Rolling Stone songs for a set, so it was really fun. But she allowed us to come in there and do whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah.
Well,
you had to have a pseudo built-in crowd. I mean,
yeah, we did.
We
had a good crowd, and we were very popular there. So
now, I like this poster, I got to tell you. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Danny Petrodangelo, I believe, originally did that poster for Harvest Gypsies.
A band of songwriters.
Yeah, I added that to it. I was ready to play again. My daughter had grown up, and I wanted to get out, and so, I was familiar with Mike and Ed's music, and they were familiar with my music, so I got in the band, and like I say, we played together 12 or 14 years or so. Wow. And all just did our own music,
That's
everybody sang their own song, and we harmonized to it and played our own stuff to it. Nobody ever told me what to play.
Yeah.
Really?
That's fortunate. I always say that being in a band's like dating, I mean, because, gone tomorrow, your day, gone tomorrow. But, a band like that's like being married, But very fortunate.
Oh, it is.
Very fortunate. This is another one I like right here.
Yeah, no, I made that poster.
Is that right?
I love that poster. I saw that picture of that little guy somewhere on the internet. I don't even know who he is or anything about it, but I saw it and I was like, this is the coolest photo. Look at this little guy. So I added a few things to it and came up with that thing down there, jazzy jam and rhythm and bluesiness, which kind of was the motto that I stuck on the band anyway.
I like the saying at the very bottom, need a lift.
But I'm geared up for heading down that weekend. Need a lift.
Yeah, you want to ride?
So we used that poster several times when we played, primarily at the Mockingbird. We might have used it once at the Bistro. But yeah, I would use it in different ways a lot of times with different lettering and turn it different ways and put different words and stuff on it. But that particular one there was one of my favorites. It's dancing encouraged, but fun required.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, tell us something about this hallway.
These are some of the projects that I worked on over the years. Actually, that top one there is the Sweet Bay double disc CD that I did after Bert died.
You went ahead and finished his work for him, huh?
Yeah, I did. I had I ended up with a bunch of the master tapes from the studio, from different groups, and a lot of the stuff from the ones that he actually, supported. And so I put that CD together. It's a double disc. In this box right here, I've got a couple. I got one for both of you.
Wow.
But it's about 37 songs, I think, and it's basically the Flipside album and the La Bamba album and some of my tunes and BB Jam songs and then one tribute song we did to Bert that Mike Recklick wrote that I recorded in my home studio and stuck in there. But it's a double disc of all Tallahassee music.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Very exciting.
Most of it pre-85.
And all done on 2-inch tapes. This is all.
All of those, yeah, except the one I did at my home that was the song to honor him. That was done on a Tascam digital 8-track digital recorder, which records like on a video type tape, 8 tracks on video type tape. That's what I used to record, that one song, and I stuck it in there to honor Bert, and then digitized all of those old tapes and put that double CD together, just to give some life to, what he did.
Right. And these are all albums now that you've
produced. That's some of the albums. It looks great, but it's it only really represents maybe
1,000 copies per project.
I got so many.
He's got them in boxes there everywhere.
Of so many kinds, my heart was an open door. When the nights were lonely, just sit me loving so much more. Girls of passion that they had to be made of flesh and fire, mystery.
you got anything you want to throw into this? You've been awful quiet today.
Well, yeah, but I've just been enjoying listening to everything that you had to say. I really enjoyed the studio shot that we just showed. It was really a fun time going through there, and you did such a great job of explaining to musicians, what it's like that you have to do to engineer the good sound and what the reasons why you do things. And then I really like the way you still have the analog world right next to the digital world. And the transition that happens there is really interesting.
I like my front end to be analog. It's just so warm and personal, and so much feeling comes out of it that I try to capture it as much as I can through the analog until it hits my interface, and then it becomes computer code.
Kind of warms it up some, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And then once you get into the box, with the computer, I use Apple Logic on the Mac, and once you get into that, you can just do so much. It's unbelievable. And I mean, they just go crazy. They tune all the vocals, in Nashville and everything.
Right.
But you just have so much control, and it's an editor's dream, for editing. It's
I like it because I have like a keyboard, and I plug it into the Mac, and then with all of the instruments that are there, I can add any kind of orchestration instrument, stand-up bass. You can add anything you want by playing it on the keyboard.
Mm-hmm. And you're using those samples from the computer?
Right. And it works pretty good.
Works really good. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming in today. I mean, I've learned a lot about you. I've got to go back and digest all this stuff, like I said, you were one of the first musicians I ever saw when I came to this town.
Really?
I was totally impressed with it.
The band, I have to give the credit to the band. I mean,
the vocals are strong, and that's really important.
It is really important. But, I just think we're a great songwriter band. We just have so many really good songs. So I guess need to figure some way that I could expose it more to the world, I mean, I have them up on my website, a lot of it, but and the Harvest Gypsies has a website too, but not many people see it, so I have my own home studio where I record and do, play some guitar, but mostly record other people.
Well, we've got an additional video that we're going to put on the website for John, and you tour your studio.
Right.
And you talk about your equipment and all your capabilities and whatnot.
Yeah, I do. I talk a little bit about digital technology. I've got some old analog machines there where I can transfer tapes that people did back in the 50s or 60s or something. They come and they say, "Can you put this on a CD for me?" Because they want to, keep that, archive that memory. So I use those machines to do that. But I do everything on the Macintosh computer with Apple Logic. Mm-hmm. And I kind of go through and explain a little bit about that and show some of my gear. And it's really on a basic level. I mean, people who know how to record, they probably wouldn't care. But
well, I'll tell you what'll happen. We've done the interview now, and we're going to put this out there, and you'll be surprised how many people you will call you and say, I saw you. Because we load it to YouTube, and then we link to YouTube, and so it's just out there. And I've had a number of people we've done interviews with, and they say, I can't believe people call me out of the blue and say, "Man, that was a really good." And he's go, "Huh?"
That's great. Well, I really appreciate it. It's at least I know I have something that sort of documents what I did.
I think what we're doing here is we're trying to document all these great musicians that are in this area.
So many
of them, and they're all talented and original writing and all of that. And you've been a part of this through the years with all those recordings you've done to document what we have here.
Oh, you rattled off a list of names, the guys you played in your band they're all kind of legendary names around here.
Well, they are. It was a great time, I still totally miss it. I love playing music with all those guys. And I hope we get a chance to do it at least one more time.
Amen.
Amen.
All right.
It was the summer of my life, riding on the beach with my motorbike, getting by on all those things.
I really have to thank my wife and my daughter for allowing me the space to, be gone a lot in the evenings, especially on the weekends. I did a lot of night work, recording sessions at night, because people work during the day, and a lot of local musicians, they do it on the side and have a real job.
Yeah.
So, thanks to them, understanding and supporting me, I've been able to do that a lot and to gig on the weekends when our band would play and stuff. So, I've been very blessed in that respect.
That's huge.
It is huge.
People don't realize, what musicians go through while you're gigging, you're recording, and your wife's still right there with you. And they understand, boy, that's big.
Nightlife, we were smooth. We danced till we could barely move. Then we'd hug underneath the moonlight.